trying to pick up the clues.
Yeah. You know, what direction are we heading in for this T1 squad? Always a big question mark above the heads of us all. And, yeah, I think that Gnar, you take that away from Doran 100%. Zeus also a great Gnar player, but they're not thinking about picking it early, it looks like here, so they just take that away. Hecarim is moving up in terms of tier. I think in Korea, you know, Canyon comes out and kind of stomps Afrika in that last match that we did just see with the Hecarim, who apparently has disappeared, so maybe he's a little bit shy. There he is. But, yeah, definitely cool to see that banned away. The Renekton also taken away from Zeus. By the way, in the series, guys, just want to make a note. We have Zeus against Zeus. Yes. This is the reason why we call Zeus and Zeus. Zeus was here first, and there isn't an E in his name. It's actually pronounced Zeus in Korean. So it kind of made sense for us to use the Korean pronunciation of Zeus. Yep, for the top laner of T1. So just another explanation out there for you guys who are going to type in the chat, Zayus. I know that is going to happen. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Well, we have the targeted ban now as we jump back into the draft for a second here to Closer's Lucian. So I think T1 would do well to grab the Lilia here and look towards maybe a different AD mid if that's going to be where they want to go. I think it's the safest pick right now. You want to empower LM, even though he's a more passive jungle player. They're going to actually first pick the Thresh, who's rising back up in popularity right now.
I kind of like that. It is Keria after all.
Thresh has like been so relevant across so many different metas in League of Legends just because his kit has been largely unchanged and it's just so strong.
Yeah, you know, they're not going to change up the kit and it's incredibly strong. You can nerf him as much as you want. It kind of happens with kits that are very overpowered. You can nerf a champion an insane amount of times. Just look at Zoe and she's still in the meta because of her kit. As Rel is going to be picked up here. So Zeus going to be playing that one.
Yeah, very rare to see Rel actually make it through this draft, but with the targeted ban towards Teddy's Kalista here and with the Tristana coming in, that ends up working out. And they can actually grab the Lilia, so I really do like this draft here. Well, they go for the Udyr instead, which can work out. We'll see what we end up filling out this draft with for KT, but you really do need a strong control over the top of the map and often mid-prio as well, which is not easy when we're talking about Dove versus Closer. I know Closer's been probably the most criticized League of Legends player across all regions this year, despite being a top player though. He is mechanically very strong. He's a very gifted player. Decision-making has sometimes lapsed. He has had some lapses in judgment. See what they end up playing with this Lilia, which is not a surprise we get. We might get a hint towards that mid laner though. I mean, the Lucian is removed. I would love to see Aurelia, but it's going to be the Aphelios lock-in before that second ban phase with the Thresh.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, Teddy has shown prowess on this champ already. He's only played one game of it, but I remember it was quite the nice game. Picked up a win on that, and obviously with the Thresh, as you mentioned. A great pairing down there. Dove has a smile on his face. And he's like, really? We're playing Jinx? Seems like that is going to be the choice.
It's been really commonly paired with the Thresh, and now it's going to be playing against the Thresh with the Rel, but this is a really strong bottom lane for KT Rolster. There's a lot of combos you can hit the same way with Crashdown. The Aurelia ban comes through. I personally, I get the idea here for the draft because Closer has been so inconsistent, even though his mechanics have been good. I think you do want to draft for Teddy with this 9th variation of T1 rather than prioritizing the Aurelia. So you can't get both. You can't have your cake and eat it in this case. And that's the consequence of picking the Aphelios here is you no longer have that option. With the AP jungler, you would love to have an AD mid, especially an assassin for Closer, but that won't be the case this time around. Probably going down control mage territory.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how deep the champ pool goes for him in terms of those AD kind of carry picks in the mid lane. I mean, even Camille, you know, oftentimes in the top lane, but I would even put it past Closer to be able to play that in the mid lane. We haven't seen that in a while.
I agree. I completely agree. That's why this ban is so strong here for KT Rolster. I don't think we've actually seen him play the Akali. No, we have not seen him play Akali mid. That's really fallen out quite a bit. Yone has fallen out as well. Akali would be a lot of AP damage for the squad, so I don't think that's really on the cards. But Yone is hard to play into Udyr. He's going to get himself caught, oftentimes trapped. His mobility, you know, is a lot shut down by Udyr, even when he's detached in spirit form. Just can't chase as easily if Udyr is helping to peel against him. So it's a little bit tougher.
What are we going to see here? Where's the blind pick? It is going to be Sion. I love it.
Safest blind pick ever. And Doran always has a lot to say about everything he picks. And yeah, we don't know what he said, but he had a strong opinion about it.
Yeah.
And it's usually, you know, Doran who actually ends up getting the final pick for KT Rolster on red side almost every time. They're actually going to pick the champion he's played a ton this season against him here in the Aatrox, potentially. And that would be a pretty aggressive pick into the Sion. Zoe locked in first. One of Closer's better ones.
Yeah.
Going to pick a mage in the mid lane. This is the one.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's one of those mages that he has actually shown some great moves on so far. The question is, what are we throwing in the top lane here up against Sion? Most likely, Sion.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, they considered the Aatrox. I think that's a pretty aggressive choice, and they will keep it. This is going to give them a lot of power in mid-game skirmishes around objectives, around the Drakes, around the world. There's an insane amount of damage output that they're going to have at that early stage of the game. But, you know, into the Sion, you're not going to be able to put that much lane pressure on. It's going to be fairly safe up there, especially if Gideon helps babysit the top lane.
Oh.
Okay.
Whoa, really? Okay.
Vladimir.
So Vlad into, I would assume this is the mid lane.
I think it's the mid lane, yeah, into Zoe. It's kind of awkward though, because if you get slept, you lose a lot of the power in your kit. It looks like it is going to be in top lane. And we can lane swap with this too, so
I didn't have it in my mind that Dove was like a Sion player, you know?
yeah, I'm a little bit worried about how this is going to all go down. It's very stable in terms of just laning, but his decision-making around rotations, like when they're going to try to take Rift Herald fights against this Aatrox comp, like you can't be indecisive with this Sion pick. You have to be really quick on the rotation. You have to be absolutely ready to go at a moment's notice. And players like Khan, players like Fly even, who, you know, has made some bad decisions, but like he plays Sion mid because he knows the times to rotate. He's an aggressive player. Dove, I don't know if he's going to be able to make those same choices as quickly, or if he'll be able to mechanically pull this one off in team fights. The laning phase is not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the skirmishes, right?
Exactly. I mean, you know, on paper, you look at the draft, like, yeah, the Sion into the Zoe, great. You know, it all makes sense, right? We were highlighting the fact that the Sion can be flex, and it does get flex. But when you look at the names, we're like, you know, it does raise a question. And, of course, to have Vladimir be the counterpick into the Aatrox is just something we rarely see because we don't really see these two champs too often.
Not
nowadays,
anymore, yeah.
Especially Vladimir.
Yeah, I think he was played fairly recently in the LEC, if I'm not mistaken. And he's kind of seen play around regions, and there's definitely been banned quite a few times. Making a bit of a comeback for Vladimir, so hoping Doran can play him pretty well here.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll have to see how this one goes down. Maybe getting a little bit of inspiration from Atlas's recent Pog State episode, where he looked fantastically vampiric as Vladimir. Pretty interesting in this meta. I remember in the past, you used to just stack the cooldown reduction, as it was called in the past, very early on, and you were pretty immovable, even in the early stages of the game, because you had so much cooldown reduction. You can sustain really well. But nowadays, you know, with the changes to the items and stuff, I feel like he's kind of fallen out just a bit. But we'll have to see how that top lane does go and what exactly he decides to build here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tempo in how you use his health bar, basically, in the top side of the map. So he can, if he needs to be, he can be super passive and can play a strong weak side, right? Where I know that's probably not the best word I should have chosen, but he can play a very powerful and very safe weak side, if that's the case, if that's what I go with. But with the Udyr here, if you trade aggressively, you can set up for kills with fast rotation. So the timing of where the jungles are around that top side of the map is going to be oh so important. He just has such a great escape. Can really push the issue super hard in lane, and then if things go badly, just get out.
Yeah. Taking a look at this bottom lane, of course, Hybrid is one of the guys that immediately jumped onto the Jinx the second it was buffed. I think he may have even played a game before that, as we do have a lot of trading here in the bottom side. He's already played 2 games of it, hybrid. He's 1-1, and he's been pretty solid on it. He hasn't been super flashy and, you know, carrying games or anything like that, but definitely pretty decent on the pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a very fast adaptation from him, and he does not have a fun time, of course, before Rel hits 2 and then level 3 here. Just getting harassed nonstop by Teddy. That's just how it's going to go. Dove again in lane. He's not going to be a superstar, but he is. He should be fairly stable. Okay, LM is actually a really nice rotation here, but unfortunately a little bit too slow.
Yeah, and he was spotted on the ward, so they know that he's in the jungle. Zeus is going to be able to come on over here, but Gideon pretty low. I mean, they're getting on in here. That hook is not going to come in, and Gideon just goes ahead and smites that one down. He's like, all right, well, fine. Guess I'll just get out of here then.
Yeah, for a moment I thought LM was actually going to consider committing the flash because they had the lantern to help get him out. He could have tried to look for the flash kill there, but too risky. Getting a cleanse out of hybrid this early on is pretty fantastic as well here. So quick reaction from hybrid, but that's still you're going to lose. And now Teddy is going to threaten plates at 3:30 on the clock.
Yeah, just getting the win in that early trade and getting level 2 first means they were able to slowly build up a wave and crash it in and get that first plate, as you were mentioning, at 3.5 minutes. Definitely going to feel pretty good about that one.
I actually really like this rotation from Doran to check to see if LM is on blue, because they're going to look for a timing here to trade in the top lane, and they know he's at least not on blue, so he's not that close by. The ping goes down, though, as he is spotted on the ward that he clears, so... Ooh. Okay, this is a lot of damage. Like, this is already starting to look like a disaster here, unfortunately, for hybrid in this lane.
Yeah.
You have to hit 2 quickly with Rel, or you're going to have a hard time against the Aphelios Thresh, and they got it so late, and oh no.
These junglers just kind of playing with each other right now, you know? Pretty cool stuff. Keep trades back and forth. Yeah, looks like they want to rotate down. We do have the prio from Closer from the mid lane, who is going to rotate on in. Zay's looking to get this one going as the flash will come out, and more trading in the bottom side is going to force the flash from Zeus as well.
T1's just winning in on all parts of the map right now. Observer's trying to keep up. And this is the power that you have with an Aatrox around skirmishes too. Like, you're very happy to take that exchange.
Oh man. Keria is actually going to miss that one, but Teddy gets the auto down, and it is going to be the kill. So regardless, the play works, and it is just insane domination down in the bottom side. You were talking about one of the biggest mismatches, Teddy versus hybrid,
yeah,
but it's also Keria who's just insane and the one consistent piece of T1, and they are just dumpstering this bottom lane.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, unfortunately, a bad start that just goes from bad to worse. And, I mean, the Lantern's out early. They want more.
They're really trying to make this happen. They get the flash away, and the Chompers there are going to lock Teddy down. And now Rel's coming in. Teddy trying to flash for the kill. And, well, sometimes you get a little bit too overzealous, and that was an overstepping.
Yeah, Keria got turret aggro first. So, you know, with how his health bar was, that's, I don't think how they wanted to play that one out. Just ended up being a small mistake there. And was really well handled by KT Rolster. So... just T1 things, I hate to say it, but you know, you have all the leads, you have all the advantages, and then you just get a little bit overzealous. So watch this again. So, oh, they're going to go back to that first pick where Zeus, now I'm overcompensating, does get forced back here.
It's rough.
And then, you know, you have so much mobility with this Lantern, you can just go for the chase. Super easy. Teddy's going to get the auto. It's the root. And then we'll probably get a replay of Keria autoing. That actually starts us off. So he has turret aggro. He actually, it's the flail that he goes for that gets him the turret aggro, and Hybrid's like, okay.
Yeah, Hybrid plays it pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, you could have tried to run back towards the Udyr that was coming in, but he actually realized that, okay, Teddy's on the top side of the turret, so if I just avoid him, I avoid the majority of the damage. And even though they're trying to, you know, trade the turret shots and tank it, and Keria was trying to basically sacrifice himself in that situation, it just ended up being played really well by Hybrid to avoid that. And as you mentioned, they didn't have to do that. Right?
Yeah,
You got the kill. You were so far ahead. Take the extra plates and just go with that. And this has been one of our frustrations with T1.
It's like T1 wants to prove, like, this is the problem with the players, right? Like, they're always trying to prove something, it feels like, right? In this case, you know, I think Teddy has proven enough, and I think every fan trusts him, right? Like, he's a superstar. Even on his time in Jin Air, everyone knew he was, like, destined for greater things than that team, right? But when you look at it at this stage, like, he's playing against one of the most sought-after rookies in Gumayusi. Like, Gumayusi's not in this game, but Teddy's still competing with him, right? So you have to, sometimes it feels like this team is trying to prove something more than actually just get a flash and take a trade and win. Like, look at Closer's follow flash, right, that I got so upset about a few T1 series ago. It's like, just take your W's. You don't actually have to, do you have a Reddit, you know, front page Twitch clip? It's like, just take your wins and take your advantages.
Well, we have this Infernal Drake first. You can see that T1 are trying to set it up after taking the blue. A really nice play comes in, but this is Scion mid again. Keria is going to get clawed out here, but huge damage comes out from Teddy. The sleep as well from the Lilia. Element's getting in there, able to execute Zeus, and is looking for more. Teddy in the back line just shelling out damage like a turret at this point. Hybrid not able to get away from this. The double kill goes to Teddy, one to Elim, and they do convert on the play.
I mean, this is a really good play from Keria. It looks silly at the beginning of the fight because he's alone and he gets caught, but you could just tell that he knows the follow-up is coming. He knows the rotations are coming down and that Elim is very nearby. And this composition is so good at skirmishing, right? Like, especially with the Lilia early on with Sleep, you can basically turn a team fight with that ability alone, not to mention her, you know, long-term damage. And like, she's here, everybody's here, Dove is coming down, but you have the numbers advantage here. And when they set up the sleep, it's just like, that's the end of it.
Elim dodged it with the watch out deep, actually, the train that was coming in from Scion. And he gets a huge sleep, follows up, really well played by him.
So well played by him, and then the follow-up damage is just too much at the skirmishing comp. Not to mention that, you know, Doran does have teleport. He didn't need to use it in this case, but you have to think of all the possibilities in a fight like this. And, I mean, Dove had to come down, he gets dodged, and it's like, you can't win once the sleep goes through. Like, how do you turn that? You just can't.
Yeah. And, you know, that's how you prove yourself, right? Do it like Elim. You don't have to go crazy and overstep and dive turrets. Just play out the team fights like a god and carry it just a bit there. And you'll get noticed. As you can see, the gold difference in the bottom lane is pretty massive at this point. Even though they did overstep just a bit, they still have a pretty large lead down there. So Teddy and Keria still feeling good, especially after that last fight where Teddy was able to pick up the double kill.
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to be a ton of money over to this Aphelios. It's already got a little bit of turret plate gold. And if this continues here for T1, they're going to scale so well. The first Drake is an Infernal Drake, so the sole conversation about how strong that could actually be for T1 too later on doesn't get to be had because it's not going to be an Infernal Soul. But I think that's part of the reason why T1 haven't really fought over this Drake either. Like, they don't need to. And KT's comp does not ever want to take that skirmish right now this early in the game around either the Rift Herald or the Drake. You need a little bit more control over the game before you can even, I think, be the one who's going to start that. Or, you know, at least have vision of them on the other side of the map doing the opposite one. That's when you can get an objective. And now, if they're able to scout this Rift Herald take, they might actually commit. And that's what we are seeing here.
Yeah. Just generally what happens. Udyr, a lot better at taking the Dragon solo. Lilia has a fun time with the Rift Herald, so kind of just trade out these first two objectives. T1 get their choice of it, and then will choose the Rift Herald.
Yeah.
Mentioned, so he's going to be able to grab that one. We'll see what lane he throws it in. I think you just go bot and throw it bot. You already have that lane pretty low. You can feed Teddy even more.
Yeah, then you take Teddy top, and then he gets maybe some plates in the top lane. So I absolutely agree. That's the way to do it here. I mean, Zeus doesn't need any help up here right now either. Or rather, yeah, Zeus doesn't need help against Doran here. And I don't know, Valdez, I'm a little bit worried about KT's composition transitioning later on too, because this Udyr pick hasn't done much. The Vladimir hasn't proven itself to be a strong counter pick, or there just hasn't really been any attention to the top of the map at all here for KT. like Gideon is just PvEing this game, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple things, right? You get this Scion Jinx that we've been calling for a little bit. It has really great front-to-back team fighting. Vlad in the lane, he goes even with the Aatrox. He's not going to be able to pressure him early on until he's like post-level 9, as is the way with the Vlad. And once he gets a couple of items, we'll see some of his team fight prowess. But when you get a really nice early lead like this with T1, you might not even need to worry about it. You could just end the game in the early to mid stages and get your Aphelios so far ahead that turns out you're the one that's hyper carrying compared to the Jinx.
Yeah, no, I wonder like if this composition for KT just doesn't try to control the top lane though. Like, why'd you pick the Udyr? I mean, you know, it's really unfortunate because he's not going to have that same ability to like knock half of the players on your opponent's side of the map out of a team fight with a sleep. He is great at collapsing in and trying to look for, you know, a 2v1 pick in the top side, sometimes in mid, depending on the matchup. And he just hasn't been able to be active in any of these exchanges, really. So I feel like a lot of other jungles could have been the better option, and they picked it early.
Especially Lilia,
yeah,
which is available and hovered, you know?
It's like, why commit to this if you're not going to draft around it? Then when you go in-game, if you're not going to play around it either, if you're not even going to try to make it work. They're actually going to put this in mid, which also works great with Zoe. So I don't hate this.
Yeah.
And, actually, it's going to force a big reaction here out of KT Rolster.
The only thing about this is that you don't get that first turret blood as early. I guess it's T1, they're like, well, we're going to get it anyway. We're so far ahead, so we don't really need to force the issue and take down Teddy's turret this early. We're not going to rotate him just yet. Maybe they want to focus on some more dragon fights and keep them down on the bottom side of the map around those objectives.
Yeah, you spread the gold a little bit more. You're going to get more plate gold total because of this, very likely. So Teddy's going to get this whole thing by himself.
Ooh. I don't think they got that.
They did not get it.
Ooh,
that's sad.
So close, dude.
I mean, like, it was on the 13:59 second mark when he pressed the auto attack.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
Oh, man.
Gideon's really fast. I don't think he's going to care too much about this.
1,000 gold in turret plates because of those mid plates. So at the end of the day, I mean, it could be a little bit more, obviously, if they got that last plate in the bottom side. But at the end of the day, putting that Rift Herald mid, like I said, just guaranteed a little bit more gold total. And KT, unfortunately, not having any control over the map whatsoever. It's going to be Chem Tank Scion. Not a shocker here. Just kind of ends up being a good item for everyone that's a frontliner.
Yeah, Chem Tank is just really insane, actually.
It's crazy that they actually are nerfing some of the champions that Chem Tank works well instead of just nerfing Chem Tank. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I kind of do agree. I think the item is a bit of the problem. When you have like 5+ being built in one game, multiple times in a row, yeah, I think maybe the item's the problem, not the champion.
That's going to be mid-turret.
They just have insane siege. Like,
yeah,
from ahead, Aphelios Zoe is just laughing at Scion.
And this comp doesn't scale poorly either. The Aatrox pick hasn't actually gotten them any kills in team fights, but it has, I think the threat of it and the threat of a Zeus teleport here just means that KT haven't been willing to take these skirmishes or fights outside of that, you know, kind of funky exchange we had earlier with Keria looking for the hook. KTs aren't willing to fight against this comp, which means that T1 just control the map and then have now controlled turrets. And you're very happy with T1 to just give one Infernal Drake to have a mid-turret down with Zoe as your mid laner. So now you have more vision, now you have the ability to set up a lot more poke on the map. And I know a lot of T1 fans want to be frustrated right now, but you can't really be frustrated with this game.
Yeah, it's going really smoothly so far. There was the one hiccup, but other than that, they've been in total control this entire time, so looks like, you know, you're talking about rotations. Maybe going up to the top side is Keria and Teddy. At least they want to respond to this dive. As the wave is totally cleared out and the Lantern is ready, can he click it is the question. He doesn't even want to click it. They want to turn it around. The three of them couldn't do any damage to that Aatrox. I mean, Vlad doesn't even have his first item ready yet, so that was a bit of a optimistic dive right there.
Yeah. He's still Hextech Alternator at the moment. Keria wants more. Can he dodge the hook? This is what I'm talking about with Vlad. Like, he can get out of pretty much anything. too bad he's got a core drinker.
Yeah. It's not like the old days.
He would have loved to toss a redemption in there, you know?
Make that play and then teleport to the bottom side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen, but
Or
Teddy gets this turret, so 300 extra gold over to the Aphelios, who's 3-1-1. Imagine how better this game could have even gone if he didn't die in that exchange earlier. Like, imagine how further ahead, how much faster he would have gotten the bottom turret. He might have even gotten some plates on the top side. I shudder to think of the possibilities, but T1 are just so ahead, and sure, their Aatrox is going to have some issues scaling into the late game, but I feel like if T1 just continue to fight over these objectives now and control vision, you're not worried about the Aatroxes falling off because you're going to have so much damage on this Aphelios, this Zoe. And Lilia can set up your team fight so safely. Not to mention that, you know, Lilia can actually get into the thick of things to set up sleeps because you have a Thresh that she can escape with. And she'll probably get a Zonius later on, too, after that Deadman's Plate.
oh yeah, for sure. And could be going double mask as well, but regardless, it's kind of what I was talking about the other day, where it's like the Lilia trifecta, where you get the two masks and you get the Zhonya's, and you're just like, oh, I can finally breathe easy now. I have everything I ever could have wanted in this game, and I'm kind of unkillable, and I do crazy things in team fights. And Ellen is certainly accelerating his way there.
Lilia is just, I mean, it's been so crazy that when you think about Olaf being picked over her for so long this season, you know, before his nerf, and then still you're like, I don't know. Like, I look back, I'm like, I mean, it feels like Lilia would have been the best back then too.
Yeah.
And now that she is the top jungle pick, you can really see her potential. As Zeus once again under fire, but this is not enough minions here.
Yeah.
This isn't gonna last.
They're like trying to use the Udyr now for the top lane matchup.
I know. That's
Pressure.
What I'm saying,
it's
dude.
like, well,
a
little bit too late, guys.
Maybe 10 minutes ago this could have been a solid rotation, but it's just not enough proactivity here for KT Rolster with the comp they chose.
Yeah, they've kind of just been doing this thing where they are just sitting back and
Doing this thing called not doing anything?
Not really doing anything.
Yeah.
It's a very passive kind of play style from KT nowadays, and I think it kind of just stems from lack of confidence, and playing from behind is rough. You know, it's not easy to make plays like that, but
It's also, I think, an issue of, like, going back to what you just said about the lack of confidence. I think with Gideon and Dove here, there's not as strong of a leader to make calls. You know, it's going to have to be up to Doran oftentimes to be that veteran here. Even though he himself isn't, you know, he's not that storied of a player, he doesn't have that long of a history. But with no Blank, no UCal here in this roster, it feels like the decisiveness that we have seen in the past from KT this season, it just isn't there. And with this draft, I think you need that. And if you don't have it with an Udyr pick, you're just gonna slowly fall off, right? This has been the goal difference here this game for T1. They've just gotten, you know, slightly increased, despite the fact there haven't been any kills really since that last skirmish.
yeah. We had like the bottom lane dominance in the 2v2, and then we had the one fight around the KT blue. And then other than that, we kind of just, you know, LCK, very competitive. There's a lot of teams hungry to take your spots. So every match you would love to get that win, but we'll have to wait and see how it does go. Closer. Oh, that was a really nice combo there. Looking to get in. Zeus gonna block the second half of that one, as Doran will be forced to actually hit the pool, as now Closer's just having a great time. This is what happens when you're this far ahead as the Zoe, and you're playing against Vladimir, Udyr, Sion, that are not very good into sieges. You have a Jinx who is decent, but obviously not good enough to handle this siege alone. And so every single time they walk up to a turret, KT are just like in absolute defense mode, and T1 just get to have fun and shell them down.
Yeah. It's Cosmic Drive, by the way, that's rushed out here for Doran. So a lot of potential extra movement speed and ability to move around those team fights is actually really huge for Vladimir. It's cool to see that.
Eventually, we'll go into that Night Harvester, but yeah, rushes that out. And, you know, it's kind of like a 2-item sweet spot for Vlad. You could eventually build out his Zhonya's as well for just having more time to reset your cooldowns, which is really important as the Vladimir player.
Yeah, I mean, the ability haste is extremely important for him, as you were kind of talking about earlier. He's so holding his own. Like, the top lane has kind of been the one part of this game where we haven't seen that much action. It's been much more bottom-focused and mid-focused. So controlling a lot of this vision, the Rift Herald that was given to T1, I think is so important because it opened up the bottom side of the map where, guess what, you have a fed 80 carry versus an 80 carry is one of the weaker ones, right, in hybrid, unfortunately. So it just ends up being a really bad mismatch for KT where the power in this game has shifted to the part of the map where KT is the most vulnerable. And unfortunately, this Udyr pick, you know, way too little too late on the roams we were seeing there, the ganks we were seeing there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much, if any, effect he does have in this game. Outside of the Udyr, their late game team fighting is pretty insane, but they need to get there. And I think they're very happy that it is just a Cloud Soul. Cloud Soul, not terrible for T1's comp, obviously, but could have been better, could have been the Mountain in this case. But either way, you know, if they just sit back, wait through the Cloud Drakes, let T1 get them, even get a Cloud Soul, there's a chance we go to like 40 minutes and Vlad Jinx Scions show up and you're like, well, I thought we had an 80 carry. Not so sure about that. So T1, while they do have a really comfortable lead, it hasn't really gotten larger in the last 5-6 minutes.
It hasn't manifested into an insurmountable lead, and they're playing very slow, which honestly, I think is a product of LM and Teddy being in. Because LM, like I said, he's a less aggressive player than Warner. So we are going to see a sleep here, but it's Scion, so who cares?
He doesn't even bother. He's like, I'm just going to use it on the wave. It don't even matter.
Yeah, he's just practicing his aim. So yeah, I mean, I think that T1 have also, especially with that roster that started off the 4-0, the 7th variation we were talking about, they often got a little bit too over-aggressive and threw away some of their leads and some of those tougher matchups, tougher opponents. So I think some of the coaching for this has been, let's slow it down a little bit, play safe, play like old, you know, SK Telecom T1, just take small advantages around the map. But it does give some variance to the later game like you were talking about. So this is a turret trade I think you'll take as T1.
Yeah, the macro decision here, I guess, is to trade turrets. KT don't even get the turret, plus now their inhibitor turret is taking damage. They're trying to circle around now and maybe get a flank with Zeus rather out of position, but Zeus has TP, and I think T1 would be happy to take a 5v5 right now.
They definitely will.
KT looking to get in. That's a really nice engage from Zeus. They're getting onto Closer. Zeus in the front line trying to get onto Hybrid, but he cannot. They have found Doran, though, and that is going to be pretty massive. And the sustainability of the Aatrox is just too much. There's not enough damage right now on the side of KT to break through that. And Doran gets caught out, and that's going to be a good team fight win for T1.
Nerfs or no, in a fight like this, you're going to get a lot of value out of Gordrick or Sterox. I mean, that's a huge power spike he's hit here, and he's so difficult to kill in these moments that he's got this insane frontlining going on that cuts Doran off as he's trying to flank and turn the fight. He's picked first, the Dove goes down. The damage output is already so high here for T1 in these mid-game skirmishes that I shudder to think of what could happen later on around the, not this upcoming Drake fight, but the one for the Cloud Soul, which is actually a huge spike for them with the Lilia. I think it's a great team comp. So it's Zeus engaged. Doran's here on the backside, try to flank and set this up, but he actually ends up getting slept here. So they actually just turn around and collapse. Zeus just pops Gordrinker and he's like, I'm still alive, and you're not getting out of here.
Yeah. Doran just gets completely caught with his pants down. He did not respect the Lilia sleep, and he got punished for that. And as you mentioned, just the Aatrox kind of unkillable at this point in time.
If they had some sort of other follow-up to the Magnet Storm, then it's fantastic, right? If Dove crashes in after that and hits a big stun, and then Doran's in there doing that damage that we know he can do, the potential is so strong, especially now he's got his Night Harvester done, then it works out really well. But in this case, he's alone and slept. And he doesn't avoid the sleep. It's just, that's it. That's most of your damage gone.
Yeah, they just burst him before he's even able to drop into his pool. So
yeah,
not much doing there, right? So you just die. And, you know, I think KT had a chance to potentially scale up and wait until 40 minutes, but T1, after taking that fight, that was mostly set up and forced by KT, right? They knew what they were getting into with the turret trade and the rotation there. But now they're in a really awkward spot where, again, the siege is really good from the side of T1. They have the Baron now.
Multiple cannon minions with the buff, just sieging this down. Zeus rotates over mid, so this is just going to be 2 inhibitor turrets very likely going down. That's best case scenario for KT Rolster. Like, it could be even worse. If they get picked, if anyone dies, the game just ends potentially. So you have to be so careful with how you deal with this as KT. I think you just have to be willing to lose inhibitors and wait this out, because I don't think you turn a fight here. Look at Doran.
Yeah. You just got to sit back, let the inhibitors go down, and try to wait and scale up. But they're actually going to go ahead and try to force a fight. We're going to have the trouble on to the Vladimir, who is basically just going to die right from the get-go before he even gets to press his buttons. He even gets ignited and has to run away.
Pretty easy to hit that on someone who is in teleport animation and comes straight out of it. Great sleep, denying any sort of flank potential, and that will be 2 inhibitors for T1 here. And that is, I mean, that's what you wanted, right? That's T1, okay, if you try to take a fight and fail, we win the game, and we're going to grab 2 inhibitors if you play passively. They shut down KT Rolster's 1 attempt to turn this, and on their way out, they're going to grab Soul Point. This game is very clean from T1 right now. This is what you want to see if you're a T1 fan. The composition is being utilized correctly, and they've been taking only the fights that are worth big objectives. I mean, besides that, you know, it's been the fight that they took defensively when KT tried to capture them on the top side, and that was handled really well. And unfortunately, Doran has just been completely shut down at every turn.
Yeah, the Vladimir is not really impressing this time around. And you can only wait so long before T1 just breaks down the door and takes the win. So, you know, I don't think we'll be seeing this one again. T1 with immense pressure now in the mid and bot lanes, of course, with the inhibitors down. They're just going to rotate up to the top side and look to push the issue. They don't want this to get into the supreme late game against Vlad, Sion, Jinx. They will go ahead and try to end it now.
Yeah.
With their insane mid-game power from this far ahead.
Doran, you know, here, this time he doesn't have a teleport to flank, so they kind of just have to sit back, play it patiently, and that means that Aatrox gets free push in mid to try to stack those waves up onto the Nexus turrets. So someone has to deal with that, but then you start to lose your final inhibitor turret. And as the time ticks down, in 2 minutes' time, we have another Baron fight opportunity for T1, so for KT here, you're just losing slowly, but unfortunately at this stage of the game, you don't really have options. You don't have a split pushing comp. You can't send Vlad like on his own to push down the bottom wave and force T1 to respond. You don't have anything like that. You don't have tools here. You're this far behind. You just lose slowly or hope T1 make a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, they do have decent engage, but they have to use it. They can't just sit here and get poked down while doing nothing, right? They have to get in there. They have to have the rel engage again with the follow-up of the Sion. But yeah, they're just trying to desperately hold on right now, and they're not confident to take fights. So it's again full turtle mode for KT, trying to hold on. You know, they've gotten Infernal Drake in a great late game scaling comp, so maybe, but it is going to be difficult. T1, they're not going to over press the issue or overstay here. And it looks like we do have closer backing now, so not able to crack the top inhibitor turret, and KT will keep that alive.
But the clock works in their favor for the next objective fight, so they burn through, you know, a minute of the 2 minutes that were left until the next Baron spawns. So T1 are able to get a lot of extra money here, and also put a lot of money into Zeus, actually, now as Randuin's done, as he had that mid push going, he was able to soak up all those minions, all that extra gold. And it's like KT have hard engage, like you said, but the disengage and the answer is mostly just in the Lilia, right? She could just sleep everybody when they try to come through. We saw that already. And she did go double mask into, now she has a stopwatch, so can actually survive a lot of hard engage onto her when she does decide to commit and set up the sleep. Like, this is a tough one for KT, and the game will be decided very likely here on this Baron fight. And even if KT win this, the game doesn't end, but at least they get a chance. But they cannot just sit back anymore. They have to take this fight, and they're not going to have positional advantage. Look at all the vision. 2 control wards here.
TP is coming in, and it looks like KT really just want to make their final stand here. Doran is going to have to use that pool early on. And again, you know,
wait.
every time you sit here and you take poke damage, you're just getting further and further behind. So, KT, if you're gonna make a play, I feel like you gotta make it fast.
Zeus is actually trying to flank here instead of for a big Magnet Storm. That could be how it starts.
Hybrid kind of gets caught out here. He's also got the sleep coming in. He is just in the back getting slept here, and Sion is ulting away. In goes Doran, and down he goes. Yeah, he's just dead. So
That's the end of it.
T1's coming in. Sound the trumpets. They're actually getting a win here as they're running down KT down the mid lane. Gonna flash on top of Hybrid as he had no chance there. The Udyr still running as he has been this entire game. And that is gonna be game number 1. Really just a big win here for T1. Taking down the first game and taking down the Nexus.
Very much a quiet game, very slow, very passive.